Great time. And hopefully next
And maybe even some of us older owners is, but I'm back.
Who done stepped in the game at point blank range? Who done stepped in the game at point blank range? Who done stepped in the game? Stepped in the game. Stepped in the game.
Who done stepped in the game? Well, hey, there's a lot of fun reading my comment section. That much is certain. I think I set a record for dislikes, but it took 3 weeks for it to get there. There were way more likes than dislikes. The first couple of weeks I dropped my last video. Why it took so long to get all those dislikes, I don't know. I think maybe some people didn't know about it, and then once that slew of people found out about it, they came running, and I'm glad that happened, because that means that the amount of butthurt did actually get superseded like I thought it would be. But anyways, this video, well, video is more probably like audio more than anything else. But so I'm pertaining really not to a mentality today. Unfortunately, this is not an infernal thought process video. This is more of gaming is pretty great right now. I'm logged into Splatoon right now. I've got a couple hours in Samurai Showdown. Obviously, everybody knows I get I get called a lot of names all the time. I get Terminator. Just a couple other people out there tell me I can't leave Ultra Street Fighter 2 alone. And I believe it or not, I've been playing Guru Mark of the Wolves and Blaster Master Zero, a couple of things. And obviously King of Fighters 94 is one of my favorite fighters of all time, so I play that quite a bit. And Dr. Trey 81, bruh, I still don't want to beat Breath of the Wild. I don't want to do it. Like I've been at the end of that game for about 2 or 3 months now, and I don't want to do it. There's too many other quests to do. So I just look for Korok seeds or whatever. I already got everything else. I have all the shrines and everything. So I'm just walking around looking for weird stuff to happen. And yeah, it's fun. I don't want that to end. So, and it's great finding new things. And I know, the new DLC and everything makes that even easier for you to find. But I'm trying to do it without, the DLC and the Hero's Way turned on, so I can just run into stuff like I was doing at the very beginning of the game. But that being said, I'm at a point now because with the advent of things like Crackdown 3 being delayed, and there being a sincere lack of anything worthwhile on the Xbox One in the way of exclusive, it just kind of brought me to thinking about how lucky we are as individuals that are multi-platform owners, and that's not to brag or anything like that, because I know there are other people out there that even if they only own one console, they probably at least have a cell phone, so there's at least something for them to play for whatever reason their console of choice gets dry or whatever. A lot of people said that happened with Wii U, but the type of games that I played, they were always coming out, so I never really had that problem with Wii U. I think I had less money than I did, less money to buy games than I did, with regard to too much time to play games. I think I also did not have enough time to play them all, in addition to not being able to afford them all at $60 a pop coming out. And I don't care what type of person you are. I don't care what type of money you're making. The average individual cannot afford, especially if you have more than one platform, to buy every major release as they come out at $60 a pop. That's just not the way it is. So a lot of people, they wait a couple months or whatever and they get them at discounted or whatever. And that's typically not the case on Nintendo hardware, especially with first party games. They usually stay full price for quite a while. So you have to make a conscious decision to say, hey, I'm going to spend this amount of time and this amount of money on this game to make it worthwhile. But you know, that being said, those people with a Xbox One right now, I mean, they're they're in a strange place. At one point in time, I was all into Xbox because the original Xbox came out and it had a bunch of Sega exclusives and stuff like this, things that you would never see before. Things like Blinks to Time, so just crazy type games that nobody would have even tried to come up with anything like that. Number one, because there are already mascot characters on the other two platforms, so something like that just wouldn't happen. But somehow Microsoft and Sega got together to, you know, do things like a sequel to Jet Grind Radio. I mean, Jet Set Radio Future is probably it doesn't get any better than that. I had a blast with that game, and I mean, there's a million things to do. You'll never be bored playing that game. If you like the Jet Grind Radio series, but it just seems to me like the only thing Microsoft is has a concerted effort on right now is new hardware and Killer Instinct for some reason. I don't. It just appears to me Halo is obviously a ghost. Obviously, they're working on it, but we know nothing about it right now. Obviously, you know, Gears of War is already released. Crackdown is being delayed again, and I can't think of the other game from Platinum right now, but that game has definitely gone the way of the ghost as well because it's been canceled. Apparently, there are rumors of it coming back, but we're not so certain about its future, if it has a future. And you know, I don't know what's going on that platform. Meanwhile, the little console that could that, you know, all the haters. It's so funny because I watch all these YouTube videos and everybody says, "Oh, it came out with a splash in March," and ever since we saw how it came out in March, we knew this console was going to be great. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, y'all are the same motherfuckers when this thing was unveiled late last year. And all they showed you was it switching from one mode to another. They're like, oh, it's a tablet. Oh my God, what is Nintendo doing? It's not powerful. Blah, 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 blah. That was all everybody was saying. Even Rich of ReviewTechUSA was caught saying that as well. And he also doubted the capabilities of this platform. But of course, now everybody changes their tune. And it's great. And games are coming out. He ain't being announced for it. So that's great. And the other thing is the big elephant in the room is that all game engines are scalable. So at this point, and we're talking about a platform that at bare minimum does 720p at 30 frames per second, with the modern game engines. So you can't there is no excuse, no legitimate excuse to say game A cannot run on console B at this point anymore. Game engines are supported, APIs are supported. Any other type of subroutines could be handled in any type of way that you want to write your shaders. So there should be no excuses at this point. Obviously, there are some limits. In the case of Nintendo Switch, obviously there are thermal limits. So while its CPU is just as capable, if not in some cases more capable than the CPU on both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, yes, you heard that right. If you look at some of the spec-int ratings for the ARM CPU inside of this system, they beat out those other two platforms in quite a few areas with regards to the CPU core. I believe it's a Bulldozer core. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have anything in front of me right now, but the CPU for the 8 core variants in both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, they are very low power x86 processors with around 100 gigaflops of float performance, but the integer performance leaves a lot to be desired, and a lot of integer performance happens on CPUs with regards to logic and stuff like that. A lot of the floating point stuff is usually passed off to shaders and the graphics side of things. So that's where whole GPU thing came from back when the whole Wii U and the Wii U start of 8th generation situation. So this platform has a lot of potential, and since it matches the play style of a lot of gamers today, more so than they even thought. Apparently, I got it immediately. A lot of people scoffed at it initially, even though they knew it would fit their lifestyle. They just didn't want to, because they're so used to the status quo of sitting in front of basically an underpowered PC sitting underneath your TV. And while that's great for a lot of things, it's, convenient in a lot of ways than, taking the time to build and configure a PC. Some people just aren't good at that. I mean, I'm obviously able to do it, and given my background and things of that nature, but other people may struggle with it. Some people just don't want to bother, whether it's easy or not. It's not as easy as opening a box and plugging it up. So those boxes they're limited. You can't leave the room with them. And a lot of people will make huge leaps in logic and say stuff like, well, the PSP Go and the Vita can do remote. It's not even the same. It's not even close to Wii U. Wii U has less latency, significantly less latency than any of the things that you would try to do today. Even if you try to use the Rainway app, which is supposedly running on the Switch right now, this developer keeps teasing or whatever. You're gonna get input lag, and it's Wii U doesn't have that problem unless you have really shitty wireless. And here you are with the Nintendo Switch, and there's no latency at all because everything's in your hand as soon as you pick it up. There's no wireless streaming or wireless streaming of controls or anything like that. It's directly there. It's not, it's directly Bluetooth to the console, and they're right there, directly connected. So there's no latency there with regards to video or input or anything like that. So this is literally the most versatile console I've seen in a while. And there have been attempts to say, like portables or whatever that could plug up to the TV, Game Boy player and stuff like that, but it isn't the same. Every major release, every release period for this platform can be taken anywhere. It can be played anywhere, on any TV at any time, or even if you don't have a TV, you can use it. If you're on a go, you can use it. Whether you have a AC adapter that hooks up to a cigarette lighter in your car, or just any available USB port, you can play this console literally forever. So it's not limited by the amount of TVs you have in your house. It's not limited to having even power, really, in some cases, because you can obviously just pick it up and take it on the go as well. And that's not the problem with this discussion. Isn't necessarily the fact that there's a wealth of games on this platform. Is whether people choose to look at them or not, and that stems back to problems with the Wii U as well. That platform was host to a lot of games that people didn't want to talk about because the narrative was that there were no games on the platform, or the narrative was the system was too weak. So there was no reason for anybody to point at things that directly contrasted that. Well, now that stigma has apparently magically disappeared because this platform is popular, it's basically the Wii all over again. We're starting to see parallels with regards to that behavior. Some of that behavior going away, and then some people still saying it's a fad. There's always going to be people that say it's a fad, but any fad that lasts longer than 4 years obviously isn't a fucking fad. I mean, that's just the way it goes. Perhaps it is standard now. Wait, no, I won't go there. But anyway, it's just interesting because for me, obviously the Xbox One is in a great place for me because I have all the games that I need for it. I have my Halo 5, which I've yet to start playing. and Gears, which I have a bit to do in. And obviously I still play all the little free downloadable games or what have you. And there's a bunch of indie games. Inside is a great game. Ori is a great game. If you guys haven't played Ori yet, go get that game. Obviously, those people are huge Nintendo fans, and for whatever reason, they couldn't, due to their deal with Microsoft, they couldn't put it out on Nintendo hardware. But that is a really good game, and it is clearly a platformer that is trying to scratch that old school Nintendo itch. And it's a really interesting kind of a visual novel that you're playing through. It's a real beautiful game. I would say that the average person isn't going to be like me and play stuff like Crackdown. Crackdown isn't out yet, but things like that game, Killer Instinct, these are the games that you should be buying the Xbox One for, because these are experiences you can only get there or on the PC if they ported them to PC yet. So things like Killer Instinct, Gears, Halo, what have you, Forza, and Sunset Overdrive, which is just phenomenal. Those games, they didn't really, they aren't doing as well as they should. And Halo used to be the juggernaut, and it's not really the juggernaut anymore. It's Call of Duty now. It's Call of Duty, and believe it or not, Mario Kart. So Microsoft's in a kind of a pickle, and I know they said they were not paying third parties anymore, which is great, and they're focusing on first party. But then they didn't focus on first party. They released like 2 or 3 over the last 3 years that were major, and one of the major ones just got canceled, which was the Platinum Games game that I still can't think about yet, the Dragon game or whatever. I can't think of the name of it right now. But when you have stuff like that get canceled over and over again, and then you have Crackdowns, like Crackdown was supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to be a 2016 game, and here we are, we're not going to see it until 2018 possibly. And I've been looking forward to that game for quite a while. I'm still looking for, like, I know Microsoft dropped Kinect like a bad habit, but there's still quite a few of them out there because a lot of people bought launch systems. There's at least 20 million of those sitting out there not working. So another Dance Central would be great. Just anything that is different, that isn't, I could buy this on PC, but I'm too dumb not to type deal. And I won't say too dumb, but I'll say I could buy this on PC, but I like the Xbox controller, and I don't want to use the Xbox controller on a PC, which I'm like, you could just turn it on and it works with your PC. But some people have that mentality. So to say that you're going to go home and play your Xbox, and I'm like, why do you have your Xbox? And because all I see is games that you can play on any platform. And they're like, well, I like my Xbox. But why do you like your Xbox? Because you're playing PlayStation and Nintendo games on your Xbox when you could just have a PlayStation or just have a Nintendo and play those games. So if you wanted to play those indie games that are on the Switch, Wii U, or PlayStation 4, you could play those on the Switch or the PlayStation 4. You wouldn't have to deal with the Xbox at all if that's the case. Because apparently this individual I was talking to wasn't interested in any of the first party efforts or any of the third party exclusives that Microsoft has secured for the platform. And who doesn't like Dead Rising? Like, I don't, but the majority of people, the average person out there, buys Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. And there are a lot of people, and even in the PlayStation camp, there are a lot of people, the vast majority of people that buy these platforms, if you look at the numbers, they don't buy anything else but third-party games. They'll buy a PlayStation and will never buy a Sony game. They will buy an Xbox and never buy a Microsoft-branded game. They will literally buy an Xbox or a PlayStation and only play Grand Theft Auto, Madden, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty. Battlefield. That's it. There are literally people out there looking at the sales numbers. You're talking about well over 20 million copies here, and we're talking about per platform. And then you look at the first party games, and you've got first party games on PlayStation 4 that haven't cracked 1 million. Like what the fuck is that shit? And you're the lead platform, over 50 million consoles out there, apparently 60 now, and your first party games can't crack 1 million sales? Like, Nintendo did that on the Wii U. It's just, but that is the world that we live in. There are people, and I won't say they aren't gamers, because anybody that plays the game is a gamer. You can't classify tiers or I'm a real gamer. Well, no, you're not a real gamer. Everybody's a real gamer, because a gamer is first of all, it's a made up term, because you can't just take a noun and turn it into a pronoun for something just for the sake of it. A person that plays games is what a gamer is. And if you play any type of game, be it Scrabble, hopscotch, Words with Friends, or Call of Duty, you're a person that plays games, aka a gamer. Some people would disagree with that, and they want to classify people and say, oh, well, I'm a hardcore gamer, or I'm a casual gamer. There's really no such thing between the two, because what you consider a casual gamer, the casual game they will play that you would consider casual, they're actually a hardcore gamer in just that game. So if somebody only plays Candy Crush, but they're fucking killing it in Candy Crush, that is no longer a casual gamer or a casual game to them. They are hardcore. And it's weird that you even have to classify things like that, but that is the truth. So it's a rabbit hole here. But the scenario is that there are gamers that do not support these platforms in the way that I think Microsoft and Sony expected them to. I think at some point they wanted some type of return on their internal investments with regards to first party software. They don't want to just make money off licensing, because they don't make enough off licensing. They make more money if they sell a first party game, and that way they get everything back, whereas they only get a percentage back for a third party game sold. And granted, yes, they get their licensing fees up front and things like that, but licensing fees can't sell everything. Just look at the 7th generation of hardware with regards to $8 billion of total losses between both the Sony camp and the Microsoft camp, with the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 respectively, even though they were both wildly successful in the excess of 80 million consoles, even though they were both dwarfed by the Wii at that point in time. They were still wildly successful. That entire console generation literally took off with the Wii. So when the Wii took off and Sony and Microsoft came with their respective efforts, the Kinect and Move, that catapulted sales additionally in that point in 2008 or 2009, I guess that's when it started. And that basically extended a console generation that was only supposed to be 4 to 6 years, and extended it to 7 and 8 years, and maximized profits and got them out of that hole, or some of that hole that was initially there for both of those companies. And it appears to be happening again, where gamers are not paying back the platform they pledge allegiance to. And I know there's a lot of flip-flop gamers out there. There's people that follow, what IGN thinks is hot for the generation. When the generation starts, oh, well, it's this, so everybody should be into this, because all we talk about at the office is this. So, there are a bunch of gamers out there that are like, well, what does IGN like at the office? I'm going to be a fan of that. There's, an insert website here for, other people or whatever. But there are people that fall into those camps, and at this point in time, Sony's the hot thing, so I want to be a Sony fanboy. Or this generation, Xbox is the hot thing, so I want to be the Xbox fanboy or whatever. And it's going to flip-flop for those type of people that are flip-floppers like that. But, selling consoles and things like that, which I think to me is just asinine if you want to think about value of anything that you purchase. But that is hurting them, because they aren't getting the money back from all the R&D from building this hardware. And now they have to come up with cost-cutting measures like releasing the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X, which is essentially allowing them to refine the way they manufacture their existing parts. And, they add stuff to it, obviously, to make a better or pro product with regards to the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. Which is something that Nintendo had been doing all along. They literally take D-pads and thumbsticks and buttons and all types of stuff, and they reuse them for all types of different products. And that way, your yields aren't that bad. You're basically using everything, even reject stuff. You're able to take stuff from it and get a type of game from it. So they're doing that with this type of hardware, and that's great, I guess, to a certain extent, because they're smart enough to foresee how to overcome some of the losses. But the problem I have is the fact that they feel the need to extend the generation. And I know they need to, because they can't afford to launch $400 and $500 consoles every 4 to 6 years. They just can't do it. It's far more lucrative for them to extend the product cycle as long as possible. But with Nintendo coming out with the Switch right now, and we already know as soon as they launch this product, they're working on something else. And whether it's to power up this existing Switch with the supplemental computing device, which is rumored, but was also seen with the Foxconn leak that had identical specs to this Nintendo Switch. There's also, additional hardware or a actual revision of this thing, since it's essentially a tablet, and they could just update it with a newer chipset in it. So, we can go from, X1 to X2, even though X2 is inherently just a battery saving feature of X1. It's just a more efficient X1. So, and as efficient the Switch is, I don't really see any improvements there. Maybe they could re-release it with higher clock speeds and bring it all the way up to 2 gigahertz again. Maybe that would be a great way to upgrade the existing Nintendo Switch Pro, or whatever you want to call it. Come up with your nicknames now. Switch Pro, I said it here first, even though I'm pretty sure somebody else said it first, but I'm just being sarcastic here. But should that happen, and it will at some point, something Nintendo is doing is going to happen. And I think that Sony already knows that's going to happen, and what they're doing is hedging their bets. And there will probably be a PlayStation 5, and it will probably be an Xbox 720, whatever you want to call it, 2 circles, in the coming years. I would say no later than the beginning of 2019, we hear something with regards to the 9th generation efforts from those two hardware manufacturers. Especially if Nintendo does decide to reiterate their hardware and make it stronger in some way, shape, or form. There's no way they can leave Nintendo on the market with more powerful hardware for longer than a year. So it's going to happen at this point. The question is, with the release of the Xbox One in 2013, the Xbox One X this year in 2017, which is a 4-year span, the same thing for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro last year, which was a span of about 3 years, and you're talking 2 years after that, you're starting the next hardware cycle again. We're starting to see parallels where, and granted, yes, it's not going to be as bad as Sega did with the Genesis and the Sega Nomad and Game Gear variants that they came up with, and there was Neptune, Mars, and Mercury, and all kind of different code names for all kind of different hardware out there. I know Sony and Microsoft aren't going to go that far and break themselves in the bank trying to come up with new hardware just to make sure they aren't last in the market. But that type of stuff can hurt both of those companies monetarily. And I just hope that some type of way, Microsoft and Sony figure out a way to monetize this better than doing something like saying, oh well, Xbox Live and PlayStation Network are now $100 a year. I hope it doesn't have to go that route, but the way gaming and gamers are going these days, it's getting kind of dumb out there. It's getting kind of dumb. You release a $60 game, and in 2 months it's $20 on those two platforms only, in particular. People aren't buying games, not like they should, unless they're titled Call of Duty, Batman, Assassin's Creed, or Battlefield. They just aren't buying them. So, and obviously there are exceptions to the rule. Halo still does okay. Obviously nothing like Halo 2 numbers, or Halo 3 numbers, but we're still talking good solid numbers here. But it's nothing really to brag about anymore. And Forza appears to be doing really well after each iteration, but there's only so much you can do before you drive that series into the ground. I hope they don't. But Forza appears to be the number one franchise from Microsoft on the Xbox brand, and that's kind of telling in that at one point Gran Turismo was the best selling franchise on the first party franchise on Sony platform. So it's kind of interesting to see that take. And while I can't really say the same isn't true for Nintendo, because Mario Kart is Mario Kart. I mean, you can't get better than 20 plus million Mario Kart games sold on the Wii. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. There's no other first party racing game that put up those numbers other than Gran Turismo. So it's crazy that people love racers, whether they're cartoony, realistic, or arcade style. So yeah, but that was just a little take I wanted to talk about, because people love these games, man. I mean, they love to champion these games, but they aren't buying them. Like, I don't. Just look at NPD. Just look at NPD data. Just look at the top 10, top 10, and top 20, and these games that people are listing to have fanboy wars, like, you don't see them on people's friends. When you go look on your friends list, you don't see people playing them. You don't see them making the top 10 on those two platforms, with the exception of maybe Uncharted is maybe a little bit consistent, but no. If it's not NBA 2K, Madden, Assassin's Creed, or what have you, I've already mentioned these before. They're not doing gangbusters anymore. So everybody remembers the glory days of Medieval and Jack and Daxter and all that type of stuff doing well for the PlayStation brand, and I don't know what their focus is going forward, but a lot of that stuff appears to be absent, and I don't know if that's because of certain efforts that they made during launch and they didn't do that well. But me personally, I liked games such as Infamous and Sunset Overdrive, so I would like to see more of those type of games on those platforms going forward, and they can't happen unless people buy them. So I would like to do the call out and beg, please people, please buy these games, because I like to see more of them, but all I can do is vote with my own wallet, and hopefully you guys do the same. And the same goes with the business practices. If you don't like something that somebody's doing, or if the game just isn't fun to you, then there's no reason for you to buy it. If there's demos out there, you try it and you don't like what you see, regardless of what your overlords and on insert podcast or insert website that you follow here say, just because they like it doesn't mean you will. And if you don't like it, then don't buy it. It's just the way it works. But yeah, I'm done with this one. So it's just a little chat with you guys, and I hope you're having fun with your games. I know I am. I barely have any time to play through a lot of these games. There's more game than time for me to play games, and I guess that's a good problem for me to have, because anytime I turn a console on, there's always something for me to do. So As I always say, do you play games to have fun or to impress other people? I'm out. Oh yeah, bro. You know I ain't motherfucking scared. So if you ready, we can do that hangout though. For real. Stop hiding behind Twitter and re-uploading old videos.
Super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot, super